Steve Bowers welcoming you to Dialogue here at E-Plus TV6, a special conversation about coaching with folks that know the business. We're talking about Coach Dan Bland is with us, Coach Randy Barnes is with us, and Coach Joe Holloway, who's put all this together. We appreciate it, Coach.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. You guys are swapping names and stories already. Now, one we need to pick up on. You say, Coach, that this man needs to explain some deciding play somewhere.
Yeah, we want to not have people be haters of Randy Barnes.
Randy Barnes.
A lot of people.
I met Randy. Seemed like a really nice guy here.
Yeah, well, people from Jackson High in the '60s and some of our fans, more the fans, players knew the difference. They give him credit for kicking the field goal that knocked us out of being #1 in the state and beating us on the bowl game on Turkey Day.
Okay.
But he is innocent. Now, he was a great kicker and went on to UTM to be a great kicker, but we had to play Ripley, and I'll let Randy finish that story.
Well, actually, the guy that kicked that field goal, that was in '65, I believe it was.
Yeah, '65.
Was because I was at the game just watching. That was George Morris. He was another guy, and he was the kicker there. Everybody thought that was me. In fact, there's a bronze shoe in the trophy case at Ripley. And Dan knows it. We used to have the Big Ten championship was played on Turkey Day on Thanksgiving.
Every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was in the game that year, I think, was in Brownsville.
We played Brownsville.
Yeah, it was. And no, that's not me.
All right, now what about the shoe, the bronze shoe?
The bronze shoe, they put it in the trophy case at Ripley, and everybody that day walks by and said, "That's old Randy Barnes. He kicked over at Martin, all this and that," and they give me all these accolades, and it's like, nope, that's George Morris. He was a lineman and a kicker, and he kicked it. They won 3-0. That was a game. Was 3-0.
One of the few times in the '60s that Jackson High ever got shut out.
And
all right, Coach, is anything they're telling true?
That's all true.
That's all true.
That's all.
Okay. All right, and we can tell that.
It was real.
Okay.
Cold too.
Now, how'd you get into coaching?
I think when I was probably in the I don't know, Little League baseball, and I liked the way the coaches treated me and what they did
right?
and all that, so I decided I wanted to be a coach.
Right then?
That early, yeah.
Okay.
It's a baseball. I like
How'd you get your first coaching job?
Well, I had I'd go in the summer and prepare for the fall after I got drafted to play professional football.
Okay, it's because you went to Mississippi State.
Went to Mississippi State.
And then went.
And then I was drafted by San Francisco, and so I went out there, made the cab squad, but came back and then worked in the off season teaching at junior high down in Starkville. And then the next year went back and made the cab squad again, which was fine. You're a reserve player, but at the time I didn't make but $3,000 for the year teaching school. Mm-hmm. And I could make that much more than that just in 14 weeks. So I did that. But after about 3 years of that, I decided it's time to get on with my job, get a real job, yeah. Right. And I had come back from Houston, and I sent a letter to Coach Ross here in Jackson, at Jackson High, and to my high school basketball coach, Don Chandler in Covington, on a Tuesday. I sent the letter on Tuesday. Well, Tuesday night I got a call from Coach Ross about coming to Jackson High, and I thought, man, this is the fastest letter that's ever been mailed or anything. What happened? He said, well, no. Well, one of my coaches, Jim Hicks, who was teaching at Jackson High School, had decided not to coach and teach, and they had an opening, but they wanted me right now, so I came to Jackson, and that started it off.
Broke the story. You say this man was quite a kickoff returner or whatever?
Kickoff and punt returner at Mississippi State. Did a great job.
What's the key to that, you say?
Just avoid contact. Run as hard as you can. I learned pretty quick that, what you could do in high school, run around people and do things like that. And I wasn't the fastest guy in high school, but I guess I was amongst them. And in college, it's don't worry about going around. Go up, go that way.
Go that way.
And that worked out pretty
and
good.
avoid contact.
Yeah, and then we led the nation in kick returns and punt returns and things like that. So,
Okay.
and I was doing some of the running.
When you see the SEC football today compared to when you were there, what do you see?
A lot bigger people.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's physical, and yeah, I don't think there's as much opportunity for them to be as team oriented either, and that's a big challenge for coaches, I think, to get that. Where we had maybe a little bit more of that, all of them,
Okay.
and the ones that develop that with their teams, and they have those things, that culture.
Yeah.
Well, man, I think in the Southeastern Conference, well, not just the Southeastern Conference, but the ones that are continually successful, that they are able to develop more of a team camaraderie and those kind of things.
Randy, you were talking with our other coach. Joe Davis told this story about getting 3 penalties within about 10 seconds.
Yeah, it was like it was 4, but it might have been 3.
Well, y'all wound up 4th and 60 or 4th and something, right?
Well, Joe, he has notorious for kicking the penalty flag as high as I've ever seen one kicked. And I just found out a while ago from Joe what that was all about. I never knew. I just standing over there watching it. I was coaching at Union City. He was at Trenton. And then he took his hat and threw it, got another flag. Then he took his coat off and threw it. And then he sent out the punting team because it was half the distance to the goal now. There were about 4 of them. I thought, man, Joe was melting. I was telling the assistant, man, he's on fire over there about something. But that was a funny.
How'd you get started coaching?
When I was in college, my first 2 years I was in college, I went to UT Martin. And back then, and he can tell you this too, you had to have a lot of different skill sets. You just tried to get on the bus, we used to say, to get to go play. And I was a long snapper, believe it or not, and I was a tight end and must not have been very good. But anyway, I was the field goal kicker too. And after 2 years there, I had no intentions of going into education or coaching. And after 2 years, a lot of my friends that I had played with were going into coaching, and Bob Carroll was my college coach. He was a prince of a guy, very stoic, just a great guy. In fact, the football building's named after him at UT Martin now. And I switched over to education, and it's a funny story how I really got interested in it. My senior year, being the kicker, I asked Coach Carroll, I said, do I have to go over there to that other field and practice? Because we didn't have goalposts over there on the practice field. And he said, what are you talking? I said, well, I'd like to stay over here. I want to be the scout team quarterback. So my senior year, I got to be the guy that held up the plays. They run pass routes against all my buddies. I had the most fun year any human could ever have. And I just got interested in all the goings on with football. You know, I knew I saw so many systems, but that's how I got involved with it.
What does it take to be a good coach?
What does it take to be a good coach? Well, I guess that's time and place. I mean, you know, society changes. You know, when Dan and I both played high school was right after, not very long after the war. And, you know, and families were more intact. You didn't complain about stuff, you know. It wasn't the stuff that kids have for distractions now. And I think we would have adapted, but the coaches today have to just adapt on the run because of technology, you know, that they're doing. And I think being a good coach, you've got to have a good feeling for your team. You got to be a good psychologist sometimes. You got to be a good strategist because you got to think on your feet sometimes. And you got to be able to work with your community. You know, people think football is just calling a bunch of plays. Well, it's, you know, you got to coach the boosters clubs, you got to coach the community, you got to coach the parents, you know, you got to coach all of them and make them all fit into one, be on the same page. And I think those are the skill sets that kind of hurt people today. I think you got a bunch of coaches today that grew up playing John Madden football. And what I mean by that, Steve, is they grew up playing, I'm going to put them run this play, and I'm going to run this defense. When Dan and I coached, everything was sequencing. You know, you had to develop your program You center it around a similar idea, and you build this off of this, and this is off that, and so I think they're looking for kind of different kind of players, playmakers today. You know, we were more interested in the guys that were the broodmare, I mean, so to speak. They're the ones that are there every day and going to get that 3 yards when you need it, kind of deal.
Coach?
I think that's, but we have a, and I guess we've got a situation now where they don't come to us, well, not us anymore.
Okay, right.
But where the players don't, they don't come from the same kinds of background. My high school coach was a World War II vet.
What was his name?
Mac Peebles. And he could have played today. He played for the Washington Redskins also, but he was in, he was in Italy, commanded a rifle company and all this kind of stuff, was wounded, all these things. I think the big thing that's different, coaches today don't have as easy a time being able to care for their players. There's too much going on, making it look good for society, or look good for the school, or trying to build a culture, or trying to do whatever that is. And they don't have as much time to be involved with the growth of their players as children. And they are children. I mean, they can say, they're all, we can't call our guys, come on, boys, let's go. We can't say that anymore. We've got to be politically correct, and everybody becomes a man, and all this kind of stuff is garbage to me. And you've got to care about them. And I think we came up in a time when they did care, and I think they do today too, but they've got a lot of obstacles in front of them.
Okay. Interesting thing. All right, Coach?
Well, I will say, Dad brought up a point, and I know these two men. How much do you care for me was a big issue back then, and there's still players that want that, and I think they would agree with me. These two gentlemen also were adaptable and flexible. If they had an athlete that had a skill set, they would adjust their offense to it. And these are both coaches that are winning. They've won championships. They've done things like that. And things that I learned from people like them and Ross, I changed that into my coaching career for not only basketball, but when I was a football assistant. And the great thing is these guys have former players that are now coaches, and they show some of the same traits, and they're doing a good job.
Let's talk about people you're around in this sport that are unique. I mean, it could be a player, coach, whatever. What stands out to you among the people you've got to meet or know as a result of being a coach?
Some of the people that I met?
Yeah, met and been around that you made a difference in your life, or that you admire, or whatever. Just you don't like, or
I have a lot of my coaches. I could name all of them. Were great examples. My high school coach, my high school basketball coach and baseball coach, he had me, Don Chandler, he had me before I got into high school. And I came out of Little League Baseball and bumped up to the American Legion team. Oh, that was great. I think I got one hit the whole year. and the first at bat, and I don't know what I was. Coming out of Little League, I'm 12, so I'm 13, and they had some flamethrower from over there at Ripley. What's his name? Dolan Craig? Is that?
There's one of them. I thought you was going to name Jim Hickman from over there.
Well, that was before me.
Before you,
but Dolan Craig, anyway, he was one of these 95-mile-an-hour fastball guys, and I'm stepping up there. I'm ready to go, all 5'5", 120 pounds of me. And he sticks one in my rib, and I got one hit the rest of the year. I learned, but Coach Chandler, he knew how to make me work, and everybody else, I could do things that, and a lot of my buddies could too, but, I was always getting picked on the team because I could run and I could catch and I could throw, and then in football I could do those things too. I wasn't the fastest guy ever, but I could run. I'd run on the sprint relay team. You know, all these kind of things were good and kind of came to me, but you had to have coaches too that could push you and not let you be a cutesy bob as you're playing there just because you're pretty good.
Randy, some of the people you've been around made a difference.
You know, I started in high school to play for Tiny Knee. Joe, remember,
Yes.
it's Tiny Knee Stadium. He was quite a football coach.
And that was at Ripley? Or?
Yes. My dad played for him in 1922 and got some pictures of them. They had helmets. My dad says that you didn't have to wear one. I didn't believe that, but he said we'd get hot and throw them over on the sidelines. But Tiny Knee came in and he built that stadium there, if you've ever been there, with mules and they took the boys and they built that stadium and dug it out of a side of a hill and sloped it there. And it's Tiny Knee, and he was the track coach. You remember the Ripper Relays?
Yeah, and he I went over to work with Coach Nee on broad jump. And he was a great guy.
He was a great.
Rode in his Jeep.
He always had a Jeep that had never had a top on it, no matter how cold it was, if it was pouring down rain. And he was just a prince of a guy. And then I had Maurice Kelly was my high school coach. You know Coach Kelly, and he taught us really how to work hard. And he was the first coach, one of the first around West Tennessee, used film. He had we filmed the home games, didn't film the away games, and you just swap
them out.
You'd swap them out. The other coach would let you look at his tape. Coaches shared back then.
Yeah.
And
not all, but most.
Most. And then Coach Carroll, gave me a chance there at UT. I walked on at UT Martin, and I was all conference twice. So I mean, he treated me well, and I was able to find my little niche in there. And then I had all my assistant coaches. I know Coach was talking about that. We stay in touch with all those guys, and you're a family. I mean, and then I'll tell you this too. I was just talking to some of the other guys over here a while ago that y'all had interviewed. It's like time stands still. If you hadn't seen them in 30 years, you just take up where you left off the last time, no matter your age or anything. But I think football coaches and all the coaches in general in our area kept a special close bond. There's a lot of integrity.
Spread the same lies.
We told the same stories.
Well, you could see guys here in Jackson, they'd eat at Shoney's together, the coaches. In the old days, the officials would even come up at Union City.
I was going to mention that. I enjoy as much as seeing the football officials that were in my time. They were really, everybody thought that we would get all upset, but Lord, they were good friends of yours too, And
I have a little background there, and when of course, the TSSAA was formed before this time, but a lot of the foundation and the early controllers were people that like Mr. Osteen from Millington, Mr. Castellaw from Covington, and of course Mr. Bridges became the legend of it. It was the TSSAA before he took it, but then he molded it and made it. And those people, I knew them, or they knew me, because my father was killed in World War II, and I stayed with my grandparents down around Millington, so I knew Mr. Osteen and all these people, and these officials, Mooney Boswell, and was one of the guys. He'd call me Captain Bland from the time I was a sophomore when I got hit the field, which is great. I said, wait a minute, Mr. Mooney, I'm not the captain. These guys over here. But these people all knew you too. The officials knew who you were. And I knew all these people because I'd grown up as a little bitty fella, and these officials had seen me playing with a ball and doing those kind of things. All this connection just seemed like I was, born in heaven, because that was, playing ball and doing those things and being around those folks, and they knew who you were. It gave you a good feeling of. Okay.
Well, the obviously hadn't gone away because we had to run everybody out to get this show started.
It's a fraternity still. Would that not be
Joe
a good term?
Fraternity. And I hadn't seen Joe in I don't know when. But every time I do, we just take up where we left off.
We had, what, almost an hour phone call
We
the
talk
other day.
hour when we call it, but it's like that with all of them. I mean, all the old coaches, you run into them, and it's the
Well,
same
the ability
way.
to recount plays, I think, is what amazes me. I mean, there's a lot of plays,
yeah.
right? Well, like O'Neal Henley said, he could take a sports account from the newspaper and he could recreate the whole game. It triggered
Yeah.
enough memories, right? You feel the same way?
Yeah, I used to be able to do that.
Steve, I got to get these guys to talk about something. Other two groups have alluded to it, and Randy's got a dandy story about it. But guys, and I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but we could all three hold our hand up, who's used the old Kodak Analyst projector, 16 millimeter film, taking the film to get processed to the bus on after a
night,
game,
yeah.
and then pick it up and have meetings and all
Yeah.
that. But film was important, and you brought up the swapping. Randy's got a story, but let Dan tell a little bit about his experiences with those old films and breaking them down. And then Randy needs to tell you his story and about it, too.
Well, all I remember is, well, over here, I'd wait till 12 o'clock whenever the bus came through from Memphis. It's where they were processing. We'd pick it up here, and then we'd meet over at Coach Ross's house. We'd work till 2 or 3, in the morning, and then I would, head out and get a nap, and then I had to go teach class, I don't remember any of the classes very much. I was probably asleep, but that's what you did, and then you swapped, just like we talked about. You swapped film. Well, you took your film down and traded it out with, whoever you were playing, and.
I've heard there were some coaches who wouldn't do that. Is that true?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
they wouldn't.
they were.
Well, and then there's coaches that altered. That's where Randy's going to come in.
Yeah,
So you
they
got another
would.
story.
Yeah, I've probably got 3 or 4 of them, but I'll tell him on his good friend. There was some great coaches back in my area, Jack Kane, John Tucker, and Glenn McAdams, all bless their heart. They're all gone now and passed away, but John Tucker was notorious and would swap his films. And I'll tell you a story about that in a minute. So, John, you'd be looking at the film of Milan, and the team would be moving the ball methodically down the field. Man, they're going. We're getting data there down in distance, and all them field zones and all that stuff, And all of a sudden, that projector go like, I thought, wait a minute, somebody spliced that. They running back, and there was a splice. I never saw a touchdown. They'd be kicking off. They'd go from being on the 30-yard line going in. Next thing you know, they're kicking off. So I'd have to call the other coach on the phone. True. I'd call the team that he played. What did they score on? You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly.
Well, let me fast forward to this
yes, sir.
funny story
All right.
real quick. When John had retired, I'm not certain who replaced him there. Who was the first? You?
Yeah. We'll talk about that. It was an easy replacement.
But it was they were raising money for a field house. Maybe it was after you had gone. But anyway, at some point in time, they built a field house. It's down there by the concession stand in Milan. And the president of Booster Club called me and said, we want to get some coaches together and have a roast for John Tucker. And he said, would you be interested? And I said, well, I certainly will. I said, but I'm thinking like, now, wait a minute. I play Milan, and I'm helping them raise money for their field house. I said, be glad to. So I'll go this story. So it was my turn to roast John. And I got on this suit coat. I got on this sport coat. So John's sitting right there. And I got up and said, John, I have finally found one of your assistants up here found an old box back here, and I just want to share this with you. I reached in my coat and I started pulling. I had cut up some old 16 millimeter film, and I started just throwing them out there. Here's your touchdowns that you had when you were coaching. Of course, when I said that, all the coaches that were there just fell in the floor because everybody in John said, oh, I didn't do that. I said, that was my film guy did that. I said, yeah, buddy. So anyway, that's good stuff. Coaches were good friends, and I've got one on Jerry Hayes, too.
I know which it was coming there.
You want to hear that?
Yeah, we need to wrap it up. Go ahead and tell this story.
All right, here,
unless you got one you want to jump in with here.
Oh, the only thing that I want to say is about, I was the coach that followed John Tucker. you know, and everybody would say, well, you know,
Like
who would want to follow
Wooten or
John
Barrett
Tucker?
Bryant
And
or whatever.
I thought, man, who stupid idiot would, well, I was in Columbia and we wanted to move back to West Tennessee. I said, what idiot would want to follow John Tucker? And then the next morning, I, you know, woke up, I told my wife, I said, Lambo, you know, I can get that job. And and she said, well, go after it. So I did. And I knew, again, I knew all these people, you know, Mr. Mayo and all of them, and to follow John Tucker, well, no, nobody in their right mind wanted that. So I got the job. Went 2 years, and we were fine, and we'd lost 2 or 3 games early on, and Jeff Morris was my assistant, and he was as pale as a ghost. But then we won about 9 and went 2 years and, you know, won 10 ball games.
You came,
And yeah, it
okay.
was good. Following John Tucker was really an easy job.
okay.
You know, it's good. He wasn't nearly as likable as I am. I love John. No, he was easy to talk to and good to go with. But
Yeah.
I'll say that. I didn't claim that. He'll get even with me when we get together.
I got to work radio on the island one season up there in football, and we did a Saturday morning show, one of those things like at Shawnee or something with Coach. He was always very gracious.
Yes.
You say there's another story we need to get.
Yeah, Wendy's got a story, but one addendum to his story. I wished I had the Scotch tape concession, because there was more Scotch tape holding those films together than you've
It's
ever seen in
unbelievable.
your life. Go ahead.
He was easy to. Well, Jerry Hayes was coaching at Southside. Y'all know Jerry.
Yeah.
He coached around everywhere. He might have been one of
Yeah,
y'all.
he's
had.
one that- he was on earlier.
And so Jerry was at Southside. So we go down there and we score. Well, the manager.
And you were at where?
I was at Union City.
then,
Yeah,
okay.
I was 28 years at Union City, and so my manager gets over there across the fence to get the ball when we kick it. It was kicking toward the north side of South Side, which is an open area there. Well, our kicker kicked it. Well, there's about 10 kids down there. Well, one of them catches it, and he takes it and throws it to another kid, and he throws it to another one. And I got one manager, he can't catch them, and they run off with my football. And he comes back and said, Coach, I couldn't catch him. They got my football. So I told Hayes after the game, we were talking, I said, man, you guys, I said, you got a process. I bet you don't buy any footballs. You just use everybody else's. I was teasing him. Well, I want you to know it was in December, right before we got out for break. There was a box in the office at Union City. So I go up there, and it's to Randy, my coach Randy Barnes. Didn't have any address on it. You know where this is going. And so I opened the box up, and there's the most ragged football you have ever laid your eyes on. It was flat, the bladder was sticking out of it, and a note from Jerry Hayes says, Barnes, I found your football. Have a Merry Christmas. You know, I'm sorry, man. That's a true story.
It
He
is.
knows it's true, too. You know,
Oh, yeah.
That's all anyway. I thought I'd share that.
All right. Well, guys, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very much.
It's been fun.
Been fun.
Any
Thank
final
you.
word that we need to get from you before we get away here?
Oh, I hope I'm still around. You can ask me tomorrow.
All right, good deal. Coach, appreciate
Thank
it.
you
so
for
much.
having
Coach,
us.
thanks for putting this
Thank you
together.
very much.
Thanks to you for being with us. And be sure to stay with us here at E+ TV6, because this is the place where the dialogue continues.